Sam Shaw here, founder of Wall Street Mastermind. I'm excited to be back today with another client interview for you guys. And today we have a very special guest on with us, Riccardo. Riccardo has been working with us since about, I'm gonna say 9 months ago. Yeah, it started like end of March. And he came to us pretty late in his process, which I'll let him talk to you guys about himself. But he was able to successfully land his full-time offer recently, uh, despite being an international student and all the hurdles that come along with that. And so, just want to get him on here to talk to you guys about his experience and how he was able to overcome the challenges along the way and achieve an outcome that he was very happy with. And hopefully, that helps you guys in your own processes as well. Because I know, especially a lot of you, what we talk to all the time, that have a similar profile as Ricardo, and you're kind of struggling out there, and so we just want to be able to help as many people as possible. So, with that said, Ricardo, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself. Thank you, first of all, for just taking the time to be here with us today, especially when you're on vacation back
Thank
home.
you,
And
Sam.
yeah, maybe you can kick things off by telling us a little bit about who you are, what's your background, what's your story, like, what made it challenging for you as far as investment banking and recruiting is concerned, and then we'll kind of dive into some questions.
For sure. Thanks for the warm introduction, Sam. My name's Riccardo. Hello, everybody. I was born and raised in Italy. I've studied always in Italy since I was a kid. Did my undergrad in Milan at an international university. And, I've always studied in English. So inside my head, I always knew that for me, there would have been the option of one day moving to the US. And then, so, straight off of my undergrad without even having 1 year of work experience, I decided to pursue a master's immediately in finance because that's what I was passionate about. And so I came to the US pretty much having only one internship, a management consulting internship, not even at a big firm. And I knew immediately that I wanted to pursue a career in investment banking, or at least I wanted to try my shot at it. And after the beginning where I spoke a bit with career resources at USC, which is where I did my master's in finance, I realized that the best way to find a job was to network a lot. But ultimately, I needed help in doing that as much as I needed help in technicals, which is something that I believe is not taught enough in a university or in finance universities. Investment banking technicals are very hard to get a grip of, and it takes a lot of time to learn and really being able to show in an interview that you understand them very clearly. And I think that's where I realized that Wall Street Mastermind, all this network of ex and current very strong on technicals investment bankers made a lot of sense becoming part of this family. And ultimately through Sam's lessons, I was able to become very, very strong on technicals, to the point where during my interview during at the bank where I'm currently working at, and where I just signed my return offer, pretty much they were very, very lenient with me on technicals because they were very impressed by how prepared I was on technicals. And
Mm.
so that's where I knew I really need to thank Sam, and everybody else on the team. They're always ready to answer any technical questions you may have. Like, I remember the days I was prepping for my technical interview, I was there, trying to ultimately answer as many technical questions as I could. And I remember that if ever I got stuck on one of the questions, I would just send a question on Slack, and somebody would answer almost immediately, and that made the studying like very, very facilitated. And yeah, I guess from there, if you want to ask any questions, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, so many questions to ask, but basically at a high level to recap what you said. So it sounds like you came to the States right after you graduated in Italy, and then you jumped right into a master's in finance program at USC, and that's a 1.5 year program, right? If I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
1 year and a half, 1 year and a half,
Gotcha.
exactly.
So you basically started what, like fall of 2022, and you're graduating like December of 2023, basically.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay. And then like at what point did you realize or decide that, hey, I want to recruit for investment banking? Was it because I know you started working with us like I said, end of March of 2023. Was that like
Mhm.
right when you decided you want to do banking, or had that like had some time already passed by the time you had come to us, or do you remember what month you kind of like made that realization?
Okay, I remember that I started my master's August 2022, and immediately I realized that like internship processes in the US, you need to recruit much earlier. And I say much earlier than Europe because really I know friends who've recruited for elite boutiques in Milan, for example, or in London, even months before they started the internship. So I remember arriving in the US and immediately being aware that I had to recruit. And at that point, I wasn't sure whether I wanted to do investment banking or maybe something even buy side immediately. I just knew I wanted to do something in high finance. Through connections, I interviewed immediately for a buy side fund that didn't go well. Then networking, I realized that I really wanted to pursue banking. At that point, it was probably September, October 2022. And then I started to recruit a bit by myself. And I remember we spoke about this, Sam, that I tried to recruit myself. It was obviously very hard, but I ended up finding an internship for myself in a boutique bank in the summer. But then I reached out to you guys in March because I wanted your help to find something ultimately to find a better opportunity than the bank I had recruited for in the summer, and ultimately it happened. So, but yeah,
Gotcha.
no, March after getting the internship, I ended up getting my internship for the summer around end of February maybe, but immediately because I saw that I came late to the party for the summer internship recruiting, I wanted to contact you guys immediately so that I already that by the time that I was doing my summer internship, I already had a good strategy and plan on how to re-recruit for full time.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. So I guess that's a good segue into because people always want to ask like, oh well, like what was the outcome? So like what was the let's work backwards, I guess. Where are you going after you graduate? And let's start
Yeah.
there.
Well, first of all, I just graduated, Sam, a week ago.
That's right.
It's
That's true.
because 1 year and a half program. So
Yeah,
I just graduated, and now I'm gonna go to Greif and Company, a boutique bank based in Los Angeles.
gotcha. Okay. And where did you do your you said you had gotten a summer internship yourself prior to
Yeah,
joining starting to work with us. Where did you do your summer
exactly.
to that?
Where did I do my summer internship?
Yeah,
At the Del Morgan and Co, another boutique based in LA.
gotcha. Okay. So what kind of like first of all, walk us through why you like why not just because some people would say like, okay, if you already got a Del Morgan offer, then why not just kind of like, stay there, do a good job, get a return offer, and then just stick with that. Like why come to something like Wall Street Mastermind and say, I'm gonna try to get an even better offer. And I guess like related to that, like if you I'm pretty sure a lot of people are wondering like, well, if you got the Del Morgan offer on your own, then like what why didn't you just assume that like you could also get whatever other offer you needed to for full time on your own as well? Like what was the difference for you, I guess?
Oh, okay, I'll be completely honest. I believe that although it's a good bank, Del Morgan, I knew that I could have done more, and that's why I contacted you guys because I knew that ultimately you guys would have helped me to find a better bank. And when I say better bank, I mean better deals, better compensation. Ultimately, those two things mainly, the opportunity to work on larger deals,
Yeah.
and also work with a group of people that I believe is extremely experienced. The one that now at Greif. Once again, nothing against Slow Morgan, but comparatively, I believe that Greif and Company is a much more competitive boutique that works on larger deals, better
Yeah.
compensation, and because of all these things, I really wanted to push myself and go through Wall Street Mastermind and improve myself on technicals, improve myself on behaviorals, and ultimately find an opportunity at a bank that I thought would be more give myself larger satisfaction as an investment banker.
Gotcha. Yeah, no,
Because
sorry.
uh,
I,
uh,
I, yeah, I didn't mean
go
to
for it, go for it, Sam.
I didn't mean to put you in a spot to, kind of obviously, both firms are great, right? We're not,
Yeah,
trying
of course.
to speak poorly about one firm or whatever. I think it sounds like though what you're saying is just you spent a few months going through the summer internship recruiting process yourself, and then you were able to get an offer, but the difference between you, how you thought about it and how most people thought about it is that you were honest with yourself. And after going through the process one time, you knew that you could have done better or the result that you got could have been better, but like you weren't necessarily like putting your best foot forward yet. And you were kind of looking for like a way to kind of get to that next level, working just as hard as you did while you were doing it on your own, of course, but like for the same amount of work that you're putting in to get an even better result. And that's why you decided to reach out and get help. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Exactly, exactly, exactly.
Gotcha. Um, and so obviously I know like we talked this entire time, but for people that are just hearing from you for the first time, describe to them kind of like what it felt like when you finally got this offer, I guess. And like what was that feeling like? Because obviously it was a very long and challenging process. Recruiting always is, and we're gonna dive into what that was like in a second. But what does it feel like to come out the other side and when you have that light at the end of the tunnel? Can you just kind of walk our audience through that a little bit?
The full-time return offer or the summer internship offer? Which one are
I
you talking
guess
about?
I guess both. Although, yeah, I guess both really. Because I'm
For
sure
sure, for
the
sure.
summer internship offer was nice. But then the full-time offer is like when it really became real, right? Because even when you get the summer internship
Yeah.
offer, you're not guaranteed to get a full-time offer either. And I think for you, and maybe you'll talk about this a little bit too, there's like the additional complicating factor of being
International.
student, you need sponsorship, being so late in the
Yeah.
process. A lot of the bigger firms that typically sponsor are already done, and so there's like an additional layer there, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So I will say the summer internship offer, it felt extremely good because I felt like I had one foot in the door at that point. Feel like, okay, worst comes to worst, I don't get a return offer, but I still have a summer investment banking internship on my CV. Worst case scenario, if I can recruit in the US for a full time in the US with that, I'll definitely recruit for a banking position in Europe with the US summer investment banking internship. So definitely took away a lot of stress for me as an international student, which is obviously extremely stressful. Coming here, that a lot of banks don't sponsor you, that you have only a limited time to recruit for the banks that you want. And obviously, I got this offer after quite a few rejections, so it really felt like it took away a lot of stress off of me. And then I will say the return full-time offer even like 10 times the satisfaction of the summer internship offer because first of all, it came from a bank where I would really want to work for in full time and where I will work full time. And it came after a summer internship at Del Morgan, plus also a fall internship at Greif, because this past semester for me was a real grind. I was taking my last courses at USC. I had 3 exams still to take. And at the same time, I was doing this internship at Greif and Company. So I really went back and forth with the school and working, and it really at times it really felt like I was climbing a mountain. And I actually didn't sign until like the 1st of December, so until the end, I remember telling my CEO like, I mean, what do we have to do? I mean, in 2 weeks I'm graduating, and I still don't know whether I'm gonna stay here for full time if I'm gonna sign. And I remember when I asked him that question, he told me, "Don't worry, I have good news for you." And then eventually, like the week after, we met up for breakfast, and I signed the full time offer, and it really felt like everything aligned. It felt like all the effort of 1 year and a half, it all came together into this big reward. And now I'm just in vacation, enjoying my last few weeks of free time, and then I'll happily go back to Greif.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when you actually did your graphic, oh, because that's right, because you had already had your summer internship lined up. So the graphic internship that we helped you get was actually more of a fall internship, which is a little bit unique because usually it's the summer internship that converts into full time. But in this case, Greif basically tried you out in the fall, same idea, but
Exactly.
then you were doing it like in conjunction with school. And then if you do a good job, then they would bring you back for full time. And obviously, um, I assume like they didn't have an issue with sponsoring you and things like that because they
Exactly, which is amazing, really crazy.
yeah, like I think like one thing that a lot of students always, especially international students, really run into challenges with is just how to find, especially if they're late to the process, and a lot of the bigger firms are already done recruiting. Like, how do you find those maybe slightly smaller firms that are still willing to sponsor your visas? Was there like a particular way that you went about doing that, or how did you kind of identify this opportunity?
Oh, to be honest, I got very, very lucky because I first of all focused on, okay, I want to get the offer. Like, I mean, like as you taught us also to us international students, first of all, you know, you don't want to put you don't want to tell them immediately that you're an international student unless obviously they ask you. It's tough to lie, but I tried to, you know, not say it right at the beginning. As I came towards the end of the recruiting process, which was very long, it was about 7 to 8 interviews long. It came out, but at that point, I think they already had like a good idea of who I was, my work ethic, and all that other stuff. And so at that point, they already liked me. And you know, luckily for me, in the past, they had already sponsored H1B and green card also, which is amazing. And so you know, if everything goes well, I'm gonna go through these same processes they've already had with another international student. And my recommendation to any other international student is something smart you can do is every time you're trying to recruit for a boutique bank, you want to look at past employees. And you know, if one of their past employees is an international student, chances are they sponsor H1B, and at times even green card, especially you know these smaller boutiques, they can also sponsor green cards. Like from what I understand, it's much easier to get sponsored a green card at a smaller firm rather than a larger firm. So
Why is that?
if you're able to find boutiques that employed international students in the past, there's probably a good chance that you can recruit for them.
Interesting. Why is it easier to get sponsored for a green card with a smaller firm?
Because apparently, I'm not 100% confident on this, but apparently, green card process it's completely different. The firm has to in some way demonstrate that you as an international student are a better candidate than any other people that apply to the position. And you know, oftentimes these smaller boutiques they don't even put these openings on LinkedIn, and so at that point they just you know find their candidates through networking and everything. So at that point, you know, it's not like the LinkedIn opening where you get flooded with CVs and it's tough to show. Okay, this was the best candidate I had. You know,
Yeah.
instead, you know, a small boutique where there's not many applications and everything, it's a bit easier to demonstrate. Okay, this is the best candidate we had, and then there's also other requirements such as you know you have to have major in a similar area. In my case, I was finance undergrad and grad, so it was easy to prove. But you know,
Yeah, that makes
that's
sense.
the
Yeah,
main thing is you know, smaller firm gets less applications.
yeah, for sure. That makes sense. Um, so I guess let's talk about like the process itself, right? So obviously you recruited for the summer internship on your own, and then you got the offer with Del Morgan. So you were obviously doing your own prep already. Um, and so curious to hear a little bit about how you were going about your preparation and recruiting and networking process prior to Wall Street Mastermind, and then also comparing that to kind of like, well, then I guess is like at that point, you decided to join Wall Street Mastermind, and how was that decision making process? And for example, I assume like you had to talk to your parents about it and get them on board, and was that like a challenging conversation? Was that easy? And then after you came on, um, what did you do inside the program? Because I assume then your approach to how you prepared kind of changed. right? There's different things that you did that then helped you improve in all the areas that you needed to improve in. So, what were those changes that you made? And so, I know that was like a multi-part question. So, maybe we just kind of
It's fine.
take it one at a time. But maybe starting with that first part was just kind of like, what were you doing before on your own already? Maybe let's start there, just to kind of like establish a
For sure,
baseline.
for sure. So recruiting on my own was honestly quite tough because I didn't really know what was the right ways to do it. I was using 400 questions guide as my Bible principally mainly, and apart from that, I tried to take in school all the courses that would have helped me or facilitated me in understanding these technical concepts better, such as M&A, financial statement analysis, investment banking fundamentals, accounting. Obviously, all these courses were all these classes. Sorry, were great in understanding the concepts better. But even then, I still felt like I had a lot of gaps in my knowledge. I felt like I wasn't really acing the technical questions as much as I wanted to. And so that's when I realized that there's this great resource out there, Wall Street Mastermind, which apart from being a great network of great investment bankers, it teaches the technicals really well. And what really convinced me to join Wall Street Mastermind was a friend and Wall Street Mastermind member who told me about it. He told me, first of all they offer these great services and help you build your CV. They help you really understand those technical concepts and ace them in the interviews. And that's what really convinced me to join, because up to that point I was kind of going by myself and trying to almost memorizing the 400 questions guide. But when I switched to you guys, I really realized that the most important thing was understanding these concepts and being able to explain them as if you really understand them, like being able to explain these concepts even to a kid. And so the process to convince my parents, obviously it's not something that happens immediately. You just tell me, my parents, listen, mom, there's a online course that's gonna help me into investment banking, and you're gonna have to give me that amount of money. It's not super easy, but I had to do some work to convince them, but ultimately they agreed because I showed them all the videos. They trusted my friend who was a member who gave me the referral, who told me that it really helped him in his recruiting, and it also helped him find his full-time offer, as a matter of fact. And so I mean, what else do you need? It's a matter of also saying, oh damn, if my friend was able to do it with the help of Wall Street Mastermind, why wouldn't I be able? And so it just happened like that. And once I joined the Wall Street Mastermind, I think that what helped me most in changing my recruiting was, obviously, first of all the lessons. I went through those a lot of times. I wrote notes on those. I really my new Bible became the technical lessons. Once again, anytime I had any questions, I asked them in the chat and got answered super swiftly. And then again, one other great resource that helped me consolidate all this knowledge I had learned through the lessons was the mock interviews. Once again, every time I asked if any of the coaches was free to to do an interview, I got answered fairly soon each and every time, and I was able to do multiple mock interviews, which ultimately got me to my real interviews feeling confident and prepared, and that's what got me the job.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I remember when you were going through these interview processes, it was like, I think it was you, right? It was like very stressful because you were like having these so many rounds of interviews. It was like, I think you mentioned this earlier, it was like 7 or 8
Yeah,
rounds. It just kept giving you
yeah, it's
rounds,
crazy.
and then you were like on a trip or something, like traveling with
Yeah,
your friends and having to like try to take interviews at the airport or something. Like,
yeah, that was my eighth interview at the airport.
yeah, tell our audience that story, because that story is crazy, man. It's just like, what did you have to go through to actually get this offer that you finally got?
Man, it was great. That's why the return offer felt even better, because every interview they would always call me. It was crazy because they would ask me, first of all, they would ask me my availabilities. And sorry, give me a second.
Yeah. All right. So we had a little interruption, but we're back.
Yes, we're back. Sorry for that.
No, all good.
Yeah,
So
so
we were in the middle of talking about just a really crazy interview process you had to go through with the 8 interviews, 8 rounds of interviewing or whatever, and you were starting to tell that story.
yeah, so the crazy thing was that I was doing these interviews during my summer internship. So it was it was very tough to time the two things at the same time, but somehow it happened. I was in really good terms with Del Morgan at the point where, the CEO even verbally gave me a return offer at the end of the internship. So clearly they probably didn't realize that I was going through these other interviews. But yeah, it was crazy, man. Like I would receive, like they would ask me every time what were my availabilities for the interview, and then they would call me not during my available times, just like at what at what whatever time they wanted. I was just there in the office during the internship, and I would receive these calls from unknown numbers. I
Wow.
would answer. They would, and I would answer. They would tell me, "Oh, this is XYZ from Greifenko. I'm calling you for your interview." And every time I would tell him, "Oh, okay, give me a second." I would run to the elevator of my building, go downstairs, and then go at the garage of the building and hide somewhere and do these interviews. So effectively, like I took a huge risk, but there was just something that felt like I really any from that first call that I had for Greif, my first interview, I really felt like something clicked with the senior analyst that interviewed me there. And then every interview I went through after that one, I was every single interview was with a different interviewer, and I felt like I was really bonding with each one of them. So even though I was taking, a huge risk by taking these interviews, I kept on pushing, and ultimately it helped a lot. And after, I think after the fourth interview, I got called in for a super day. And so I went to the office, and the crazy thing was that the day I went to the super day, the CEO wasn't in the office, so I also had to go back the day after for a super day just with the CEO. So I went in there the first super day, and I got interviewed first by an associate. Interview went really well. I got complimented a lot on the technicals, and got interviewed by other two VPs. All these interviews went extremely well. Then the day after, and it was approximately like 5 or 6 hours of interview. And the day after, I go in the office for a super day just with the CEO. It was like a 3 hour interview with the CEO, in which he asked me so many questions. Both be and the thing, I botched that interview a little bit because after those 6 interviews that went extremely well, I walked into that final interview with the CEO thinking, okay, this is going to be like something, just a formality. He's gonna make me find, a contract on the table. I'm gonna sign it and go back home. Instead, it was the complete opposite. It was the hardest interview of the 6 up to that point. Like he made me do like a case study where he gave me like financial statements of a comp, not even all three financial. He only gave me like a balance sheet, and he told me, okay, tell me in what industry this business operates. And then walked in again and gave me an income statement, and he said, okay, tell me what company. And he did this with 3 different companies, and these were ex clients that he had. And then he also, like, after I guessed the industry, which I got 2 out of 3, which was solid. He also asked me follow-up questions, like more like consulting style questions as well. So it was crazy interview, like 3 4 hours, and I botched it a bit also because I got a bit more anxious, with the CEO. And then I went back to Europe for vacations, thinking that I didn't get it, and I was desperate at that point. Because I was like, oh damn! After all the efforts, after all I sacrificed for this interview process, and then I botched it at the last one like that. But then luckily, when I was on vacation, I received an email by the CEO telling me that, he tried to call me, and I didn't answer the call. And he told me he wanted to still ask me a couple of questions. At that point, I thought, once again, some formality, like when can you start the internship, or how many months should we make the internship, or these sort of questions. Instead, I take this last call, my eighth interview from the airport, from an airport in the middle of Greece. I was tired. It was super noisy. I took it like right outside of the airport, so you could hear airplanes arriving and then departing from the airport. It was a complete mess, and even then, there we were doing this Zoom call where I wasn't even showing my face. It was just him showing his face, and I had no camera on. And he started asking me even more questions, and that was very mentally challenging because inside my head I was like, "Oh my god, I can't think right now. Like I'm not in the right mindset. I'm not in the right con. It was extremely stressful, as you can also remember, Sam, because I remember and sorry for that once again. I sent you like two vocal messages, and I was super stressed out after the interview. But hey, man, luckily it got me to where I'm today. So I'm so grateful that I pushed through all those interviews. I remember even my parents telling me after that crazy eighth interview at the airport, they were like, "Are you sure you wanna work for somebody that's gonna push you up to that limit?" And I was, you know what, like at this point, I feel so invested into this that and ultimately, I actually, looking back at it, I like it because I like the process I went through, because it showed that they were really, like, before sending me an offer, they really wanted to know me till the last bit of detail, which I appreciate. And now I've already done an internship at the company, and the internship's gone amazingly well. Honestly, exceeded any expectation that I could have. And once again, I'm super excited to start my career here and go back and work with everybody else there in 1 month time.
That's awesome, man. I mean, honestly, I remember how stressed you were. I remember like those messages you were sending me when you're like going to and from the airport and you're getting these calls from like, CEO and saying you missed this call and this and that. And it's just like another interview, what the hell? And like I was like getting stressed out for you, man. But I mean, I'm glad, I mean, you handled it super well, obviously. And I think a lot of people would have um probably given up halfway through that process, or just there were so many opportunities to just kind of mess up and be eliminated, but somehow made it all the way through to the end. And uh that's just a testament to the work that you put in, right? Which I guess I want to ask, because like primarily what we helped you with was obviously your technicals. um what it sounded like he asked you some pretty hard questions, and not like not even just the types of questions that like you, because you were saying before your Bible was 400 questions, and I think like a lot of people do that, right? And a lot of people take the 400 questions because that's what everyone else is using, and they say, okay, here are the 400 questions, here are the 400 answers, like let me memorize these 400 answers, and then like hopefully that'll give me everything I need for these interviews. The questions you were describing earlier, like, asking you like case study type questions or consulting type questions, or, showing you one of the three financial statements and asking you like, what type of company this is, like, that's the kind of stuff that, quite frankly, anyone that's read the 400 question guides knows that you're not going to find that in those guides, and you're not going to be able to answer those types of questions. So, like, what was it that, I guess, enabled you to be able to answer those types of questions to that degree, like to be able to, because I mean, if you weren't able to do that, I think we can confidently say that you probably wouldn't be sitting here today with this offer, right? So like,
Of
what
course.
is that? Because you alluded to this earlier, and I think this is the key to the whole thing, which is you alluded to this earlier, which is like, hey, the key is not to just memorize all these questions, but it's to like really understand the concepts to the point where you can like teach it to other people, right? Teach it to some, kid who knows nothing about finance, for example. But like, how were you able to get to that point? Or like, what changed about your preparation process? I understand, yes, you went through our lessons instead of reading the guide, but like in a more like for people that are not in the program, like, I guess what is the biggest difference? Like, help them understand, I guess.
Yeah, no, once again, the technical course is amazing. It doesn't it really pushes you and motivates you to understand the underlying concepts, why, the big question, the bigger question, like the why am I doing this, I think that even interviewers in these contexts, they can really tell whether you're just memorizing or actually understanding. And the technical course, it's designed in a way where you're really understanding, like the way it's explained, the way that you guys make so many examples, like, and the way you guys always make connections between the theory, the accounting, and then the real life. I remember during the classes, your classes, Sam, many times you connect this. Oh, and then in real life, think of a company like Uber, or in real life, think of this industry, or like all these connections are great, and these are connections that you don't find in the 400 questions guide, and these are connections that ultimately make you understand investment banking as a business really well, which is once again another thing that I think the 400 questions guide doesn't teach you. And all of this together made me understand, and for example, I remember one of the classes was an M&A case study as well, and that one went really deep into the concepts and the larger themes, the also thinking about macroeconomics themes, or thinking about real life companies that can be used as examples to explain that specific concept, or you know the way you guys tie around all the concepts together, from the valuation to the accounting to the real life deals, to the what would an investment bank do in a real life scenario, and all these connections, and obviously, studying the classes, taking notes from your classes, doing all this work of together really gave me a incredible understanding of investment banking, how it works, and the concepts. And I think that translated into being confident during the interview with the CEO, when I was asked these very hard questions. At the end of the day, I remember when he asked me these questions, he wasn't probably, he would have given me the offer even if I didn't answer the questions correctly. But what I was seeing was that he was really paying attention to how I was reasoning. And obviously, if you just memorize, it will be hard to reason through these concepts. Instead, I had a good understanding through all these classes once again, and that's why, I was really able to reason when he asked me a question of, okay, what would this business, what would in what industry is it based in? And I really stood there and thought about it. Okay, because it has cash of blah blah blah, or because it has a high margin, or blah blah blah. Because reasoning through all these things, and the things that I remembered from the classes, oh, this company has a high cogs, so it has low gross margin, and therefore it might mean that it's in from this industry. Making all these connections in the interview really helped me, and it showed him my understanding. And once again, these connections I learned through the classes.
Yeah, I think the key point that I picked out from what you described there is kind of connecting the dots, because I think a
Yeah,
lot of people, when the problem with like memorizing answers to discrete questions or a list of hundreds of questions or whatever is that you don't really connect the dots when you're doing that. You're just like, okay, for this question is this answer, for this question is this answer, for this question is this answer. But like
exactly.
all these things are actually related, and they have to be able to tie them all together and understand like why this one answer actually affects this other answer in this way. And like if you can't connect the dots that way, then as soon as they change one thing about this question, you're not gonna understand like all the downstream effects of that one change, right? And
Exactly,
fact of the matter
exactly.
is, like in a real interview, you're not going to get the exact same questions you already prepared, or even if you get a similar questions, it's not going to be the exact same assumptions or exact same numbers that you already memorized. And so, if you don't know how to adapt your answers based on the changes that are being made to the questions, then you're not going to be able to answer the question correctly, right? And so, I kind of call it
Exactly.
application knowledge. Like, there's like, yes, there's like memorization, but you can memorize something without really understanding it or without really knowing how to apply it. Application knowledge is when like you take it to that next level where you're not just memorizing anymore. You don't even really have to like think about it. It's almost like second nature, because like you're Italian, like you don't have to think about what you want to say when you're speaking Italian, right? Or
Yeah,
and it's just second nature. Like finance is like that too. You're learning, like for technical concepts, you're learning just another language. But when you learn a foreign language, like some people try to, memorize vocabularies, but then they don't know how to string it together and form full sentences, then that's not good enough, right? And so that's kind of like similar idea, I guess. Um, so last question for you, because I know we're almost out of time here, but um, I always like to ask people that have, successfully gone through the recruiting process this, which is, now that you've been through the process and you come out the other side successfully, um, like what's one piece of advice you have for people who are, just about to go through recruiting now, or maybe are currently going through the recruiting as we speak? Maybe it's someone similar to you, or they're an international student, and so it's even harder for them. But like, was there something that you learned or picked up along the way that you feel like really, really had a big impact for the outcome that you got? And is there something like that that you can pass on to other people to help them with their own processes as well?
For sure, for sure. So biggest I'll give three tips that these are the three that going back I would tell myself at the start of my recruiting process. First of all, understanding as opposed to memorizing what we said right now, being able to make connections between the different questions. So exactly what you said, changing a bit not asking yourself the questions exactly as they are in the 400 questions guide, but changing them a bit so that you really make sure that you know the concept, not that specific answer. Then secondly, this is especially for international students, try to get as many US internships as possible, because I think that internships in the US as possible, because I think that many times what obstacles the obstacle in international students getting a job in the US is that these US employers are afraid of taking on these international students, maybe not even because of the sponsorship, because many times these US employers don't even have to sponsor an international student. For example, for an internship, they do not need to sponsor him for an OPT. So many times these US employers are just afraid that, maybe these international candidates, they don't know what it means like working in a US based firm, and they're gonna, screw up something. So it's better if as soon as you come into the US you try to get those internships. It doesn't have to be immediately an investment banking internship, but just some internship in the US, obviously finance or business related, that can show that you're able to work in a US workplace. And lastly, my last tip would be just never giving up throughout the process. At the end of the day, if you put the work hard, and this means even getting good grades in school, and just focus on your recruiting process, and just keep on pushing harder than the rest of the competition. There's no reason why you can't get it. I've had friends that went to non-target schools and have their place in extremely good investment banks. So that just goes to show that, obviously it's extremely competitive, but if you're relentless about it and do everything as you promise yourself you're going to do, then you're ultimately going to reach your goal. And obviously this applies to everything in life, but just try to push harder than the others, and you'll get your spots.
Absolutely. That's really, really good advice, man. I asked you for one and you gave us three, so that's that's much appreciated. And yeah, I think all of those things are very, very valid, and couldn't agree with you more. So I think obviously we talked a lot about the right way to approach technicals throughout this entire interview. I think your point about international students demonstrating that you're acclimated to the culture here in the States, I think is very important. And then obviously the last piece is kind of a given, but investment banking recruiting is very hard. You should expect it to be hard. I think a lot of people kind of uh, don't have the right expectations coming in. And I think like when you don't expect something to be hard and it turns out to be hard, then it's very discouraging. But if you go into a process already expecting it to be hard and it turns out to be hard, it's almost like a lot more manageable, because that's like in line with your expectation, right? And I always tell people that like what you're asking for is you want to graduate with a job that's super high paying, probably double, if not triple, what a lot of your friends are going to be making, even though they're the exact same age as you. And so when you think about that, like it's not supposed to be easy, because if if
was
that's easy, then everyone would be doing that, right? And so you gotta have the right expectations, and if you know it's gonna be hard, then you have to be ready to kind of like, you know, overcome all the challenges that are going to stand in your way because uh, they're going to be there, and only the people that can overcome those challenges get to reap the rewards at the end of kind of this whole process, right? And so I think that mentality of not giving up and to just keep fighting and keep going, but also like just as importantly, like what you did, like getting the help that you need along the way, as opposed to just like saying, "Oh yeah, this is hard," and I'm just gonna keep struggling on my own, even though I don't really know what I'm doing. Like that's not really the smart way to go about it, right? So, and I guess on that note, guys, for those of you that are still with us, if you find yourself in a similar situation, maybe you're an international student, and so you have more to overcome. Maybe you're starting late. Maybe you have been trying stuff on your own already, but you feel like the prep that you're doing is not really like getting you to the level that you need to be at. Or maybe even like you've had a little bit of success on your own, just like Riccardo did, but you know that you can do more and you're not satisfied with where you're at and you just want to take it to that next level, then I want to encourage you to reach out to us and schedule a call with our team. Uh, we do free consultations just to kind of like learn more about you, see what your goals are, what your challenges are, what do you need help with, where are you trying to go, and then like based on what you tell us, we'll lay out kind of like a game plan for if we think we can help you, we'll lay out a game plan for what that might look like. But sometimes like we might not be able to help you, in which case we'll tell you that as well. But either way, like we'll just do our best to give you some advice on that's personalized to your situation, and just try to help you get one step closer to your goal, right? So if that's something that you're interested in, you can go and book this call at www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. The street is abbreviated to ST, so it's wall stmastermind.com/apply. So yeah, we look forward to talking to you guys. And aside from that, Ricardo, I want to thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your just your story and your entire journey with us. I think it's been super valuable for other people just to be able to hear what you had to go through and how you were able to overcome and how you were able to get this outcome that you wanted. And I think that your story is going to inspire a lot of other people who, maybe come from a similar background as you, or maybe are encountering some of the similar challenges right now. And a lot of times it's just like giving people that belief that it can be done, and that makes all the difference for them. So I really appreciate you for coming on here, and I want to congratulate you again on an amazing offer. And I know you're
thank
starting
you, Sam.
in a month, and I know you're traveling this next month, so definitely enjoy your time off, and look forward to seeing what you accomplish ahead of you as you start your career, man.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you so much for having me today, and thank you for helping me all these months. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely, and let's definitely stay in touch. I would love to see what's going on in your career and stuff. All right,
Of course.
awesome. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap it up here, and thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll be back with more of these for you guys in the near future. All right, talk soon.